So, the Etheria Restart official launch patch notes are finally out. So, let's go through them one by one and see what we have, and we'll talk about it a little bit. Okay. So, let's see. So, we have Mio. Okay, so she is being added to the permanent summon pool, which means that she's not going to be on her own banner, which is what I was a little bit worried about. So she's actually going to be on the summon pool, which makes me really happy. Let's see. And she's constant, right? Yeah, she's constant. So she's still light and dark, so it's still going to be rough. And then we have Odd. So SR. Let's see. So she has the spell and counter attack, so that's going to be a little bit interesting. Then we have the new gameplay that they talked about. So once a union reaches level 6, United Front will be unlocked. And then we have one event per week, and then match unions. You compete by launching simulated attacks. And then it affects your union rank, and higher ranks will unlock advanced union badges and union banners. So that's actually nice, because at least it's not like rewards, like premium things like skins locked behind it. Because like, while I agree it should be something that like should be competitive that you want, I don't think it should be so super competitive that like some unions won't get it. Okay. Then we have the shell story mode, which we kind of saw in the hyper talk, which is interesting because you can see the rewards on here. I'm not sure. So those are the coins. I don't know what this is. We got like some coins that you can see there, and crystals that we can get off the game mode, which is really nice. Okay, so this is an orb for Revelation Wish Orb. Don't know what we can make a wish to get. Maybe mayhaps a Revelation shell. That'd be really nice. Then we have Prismatic Wish Machine. Ooh, okay. So you can draw exclusive Chaku Ring outfits at the Prismatic Wish Machine. Prismatic chips. Okay, so I wonder if these prismatic chips are earnable, or if it's a situation where you have to buy them. I hope they're earnable. Like, I think a good balance is like, you can buy some of them and you could earn some of them. I think that's a good balance. That way, even if you're just completely free to play, you can still get a chance to pull on this and get some cool Chaku skins. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so Anti-Sync Echoes now includes exclusive Lingluo story content, so that's nice, and unlocks challenge groups 10 through 12. That's really nice. Ember Trek introduces hard mode challenges. That's interesting. Okay, so then we know already that the SSR pull count for the limited summons went down to 80. Now we can have a filtered pull history. A Hydra voucher is a purchasable item for recharge to allow players to buy sufficient vouchers at once for continuous in-game bundles or item purchases, so that's nice. Added a region protection period for Summit Arena, making players only within the same region for the first 15 days after... Oh, matching. I said... Okay, so that keeps the differentiating levels that they were talking about. Oh, okay, that's nice. Added a ban protection mechanism for Summon Arena matches where both players are above Diamond 1, enabling pre-ban of one Animus and a ban protection for a third Animus. That is nice. That is what we wanted, was the protection. Unfortunately, it is behind a Diamond rank, but at least it's there. So I feel like that's a good start. I hope in the future they lower that down to like gold, because I feel like, honestly, I don't know. I would say even lower than that. I would say that every rank should have access to the protection for their Animus, personally. But at least it's there, so it gives me hope that in the future, if enough players want it, like, you can have ban protection across the board, because that was one of my issues. I was like, oh. Okay. Added attribute bonus preview for Animus Ascension. That's nice. Added early exit settlement rules for Infinity Train. That is really nice, because Infinity Train goes on for, like, a while until you die. So you can literally be stuck there for like 30 minutes doing round after round after round after round after round. If you're able to clear, and it can be really long. So it's nice that there's an early settlement rule if you need to leave. Added language selection option. Okay. Added clearance time and team composition displays for anti-sync echoes and infratrek modes in the leaderboard. That's nice. Added level display for avatars in the friends interface. Added a sharing function upon first obtaining each SSR. I expect this to mean that people are going to spam the chat with, I just got X SSR, whether they mean to, or maybe they don't. So we have cross-region friend addition and private messaging. So if you're in a different region, now you can connect with each other. So that's really nice. Added dynamic avatar frames and pre-registration avatar frames for the public test. I like that. Added avatars for select animus units to the name card feature. I like that. So now we get a name card feature on top of like having an avatar. Okay, added configuration for hidden styles in the wardrobe for Chaku ring outfits. Optimized the character model effects for Crimson Duchess Veronica. That's really nice. I really do like how she looks, so I'm really glad they optimized her effects a bit. Added the acquisition method for the Blade of Verdict Messiah Pale Horizon skin. Okay, I like that. Adjusted the model for the protagonist's cozy outfit. Adjusted the visual design of wardrobe card faces. Adjusted the pricing of select skins in the wardrobe. I like that. So they adjusted the pricing. So hopefully that means it's lower, because some of those skins were just recolors. And I did not feel like the recoloring for skins should have been that high. I think there were like 1,000 crystals just for a recolor skin, which is like $10 roughly, maybe a little bit more than that. And that's a little bit high for something that's just a recolor. Like, it's not even a different skin. So hopefully that means they adjusted it lower. We've adjusted the skill mechanics and prowess coefficients of select animus units to balance their performance in PvP and PvE. Okay. Diversity and balance of team compositions following the official launch. We continue to monitor. Okay, so here's the adjustments that they made for PvP and PvE to kind of like make it a little bit more balanced, which is nice. Animus units ascended to 5 stars and 6 stars will gain an additional 5 points to their base speed attribute. That actually puts an emphasis on make sure your characters are leveled, but that's nice still. Let's see. Okay, so Grim, penalty, Chloros, adjusted his skill 3, so went from 400% to 480% damage to a single enemy and applies Doom Toll each time Doom's Resurge is cast. The skill's output damage permanently increases by an additional 25% up to a maximum of 100%. If the skill kills the target cannot be revived for the remainder of the battle. So we're giving Chloros some more buffs, which means that he actually might be much more viable now, because they adjusted him before the last beta and it helped him a little bit, but he was still very niche to Terra Maton. So I'm hoping this adjustment will make him a much better pick if you were to get him. Okay. Adjusted Veronica's skill 3. Deals 420% damage to an enemy with an 80% chance to steal all the target's buffs. And then, oh, I like that. Okay, that's a lot better. So before, she would always steal the buffs and then apply it to her team. And then in the beta, they changed it to it's an 80% chance to steal all the buffs. And this is her ultimate for skill 3. So they changed it to an 80% to steal buffs, but then even when she stole them, it would only be like a 50% chance to spread them to her allies. But now they've reverted at least the back part, like it's still split into 2 like that. But now if she steals the target's buffs, then she will always spread them to all of her allies, which is really nice. I like that because it makes her more consistent with what she does versus like before where it was kind of like really RNG. Okay, so Mia for her skill 2, her skill cooldown reduced by 1 turn, so from 5 to 4. Okay, that's nice. Her skill 3, her healing got buffed from 25 to 30%. So that's really nice because Mia's not really a solo healer because she does do other things, but she doesn't heal enough in her kit to be a solo sustain. Like, for example, even having SR Sanya or Ling Luo, she just doesn't do enough to keep your team alive because it's based off of her skill 3. So I am glad that they reduced the skill cooldown of her second ability, and then, which I believe is her Dispel, to dispel buffs from the enemy. And then now she can heal allies for a little bit more. I still don't think it's enough to make her a solo sustain, but I do think it's enough to, like, be a really solid unit. And then we have Zeta. Okay. I was hoping they would fix Zeta's passive. I'm going to be really honest here, but it doesn't seem like they have touched it, unfortunately. But it's fine. So for Zeta, her ultimate deals 220% damage to, well, skill 3. I keep calling it ultimate, but to enemies with a 60% chance to apply defense down. For each evolution of Soul Flames, the skill's current maximum cooldown is reduced by 1 turn, and it deals an additional instance of, and it went from 80% to 90% damage. So they buffed the damage on the extra instance of damage on her ultimate. Personally, I think, like, that's a good change, but I don't think it's enough considering how much you have to build into Zeta to get her stacks. Because when you're playing her in PvP or even PvE, if you don't have enough buffers or enough effect accuracy to be able to steal those buffs to make up for the lack of buffers, or even if you have the amount, that's still a good thing to do, to get her flames as fast as possible, you kind of enter into this, like, slow battle. Because how she works, it's not like Leon. If you don't know, I don't know if you've played Zeta, but just in case. So Leon, basically, on her second ability where she throws out the phoenixes, she starts at a base number of 3, I believe, without looking at her skills. And then for every buff she has on her, I think it's up to 4. It might be up to 3. It's either 3 or 4. So for every buff that she has on her, she gets an additional bird up to, like, either that 3 or that 4. So that's how Leon works. Zeta is kind of like that, except for her whole kit is balanced around her soul flames. So her soul flames, she does get soul flames for buffs, but it's not like 1-to-1 like Leon. It's every 3 buffs, she gets 1 soul flame. So in total, to get all of her soul flames maxed out, she needs 9 buffs, either stealing them or getting buffed herself, which is really hard to do in the meta, especially when you consider PvP. Because, like, let's say you want to run Marvel on your team because you really want that turn manipulation. That's 1 buffer down for Zeta to be able to get her stack. Is it possible? Yes. Can she be top of the leaderboard? Absolutely. But it's really hard and it's much slower than other units. And I feel like if they lower that number to maybe even 2 buffs per soul flame, that would be a massive improvement. So hopefully in the future they do that. I just feel like 3 is too much and it takes too much to get her passive going. Okay, and then Tiamat for her skill 1. So they lowered the amount of HP she gets when she enters her ultimate form. From the recovery for maximum HP, excuse me. And then they lowered the amount of healing she receives for each stack of Bloodbath. So, and I think, to be honest, like, lowering her recovery HP from 30 to 10%, that is a huge nerf for her. That's massive. And then lowering the percentage by 1%, yeah. But at the same time, I feel like, maybe not as severe, but I do feel like some kind of balance was necessary for her, because she was an absolute unit. There's a reason why everyone in beta was telling everyone, go Tiamat, go Tiamat. If you don't know what you're doing in the game, go Tiamat. Like, because she was just so overall a strong unit. So, I mean, I don't know if I agree with it being such a hard nerf, but I do think, like, some nerfs are necessary. So we'll have to see how she performs with, like, this being so hard nerfed. Okay, so Rahu got some buffs. Okay. So for his first ability, he deals damage to a single enemy equal to... Okay, so they went from 320% of his defense to 350%. That's kind of nutty. His ability 1 already did some damage, so that's all right. That's kind of nutty. And then his third ability, for his passive effect, it increases his defense from the 4% to 5% with a maximum of 12 stacks. So you're gaining an extra 12% of defense from this buff. That's crazy. And then, let's see, at 8 stacks for every 4% defense higher than the target, his basic attack damage output increases by 1% up to a maximum of, and it went from 30% to 40%. So Rahu got some pretty decent buffs. I wouldn't say it's like super buffs, but like these all played out are going to make him one very irritating unit to deal with. Like, he's going to be able to do some massive damage. There was already someone who had a well-built Rahu at the top of PvP in beta and was also able to like do some killer stuff with him already. So the fact that there's these buffs in here, he's going to be even more menacing. I don't think he was overpowered though. Like, let me be clear. I don't think he was overpowered. And I don't even think that with these buffs, I don't think it's going to make him overpowered. But I do think it's going to help him and make him a bit stronger to be able to compete at that 1-to-1 level. Because don't get it twisted, Rahu can absolutely be a debuffer on your team, right? He can be that little extra little support that you need. But you can also build a main DPS, because I've seen people do it. And it's actually kind of insane. So I think this actually helps to build that flexibility of whether he can be a DPS or a sub DPS or support, and like how that role will look. So, okay. So next is Lingluo. For her skill 1, before each heal, so her chance to purify 1 debuff from the target went up from 65 to 75%, which I love, because especially during like the PvE battles, that is like amazing. And then the chance to apply a whale prayer if they don't have any debuffs went up from 65 to 75%. So I think that's great. I think those are really good changes for her in general. Rosa got a little tiny nerf. I don't think it's going to affect her overall playability though. So on her first ability, she deals 3 instances of 70% damage to a single enemy. If the final strike is a crit, it has a 50% chance to push back the target's turn meter. And that got adjusted from 10% to 8%. So while 2% can absolutely be a lot, I think here in this situation, it's not too bad. And honestly, they didn't touch any of her damage or anything else like that. So I think she's still going to be pretty solid. And I don't think that nerf's going to really hit her super hard. All right, so Born got some buffs. Those are some nice buffs, just looking at the percentages. Okay, so his second, his skill 2, his passive, at the start of battle, increases the HP cap by an amount equal to 500%, and then went up to 560% of his attack. So that's pretty huge, because if you don't know anything about Born essentially cannot crit. All of his stuff scales off of his attack. And his damage scales off of his HP and his attack. And his HP scales off of his attack. So basically, you just want to slam a lot of attack on him, and then secondary HP as much as you can. So like, this is kind of like, this is big. Like a 60% boost to that to increase the HP cap. That's nice. That's really nice. And then his third ability, when more than 4 enemy units, are alive, he deals from 440% to 480% AoE damage to all enemies. So that's like a 40% damage buff there on groups of enemies, which is really, really, really nice. And I think that will play very well. Okay, so Lilith on her second ability, so she deals damage to all enemies equal to 20%, and it went up to 24%. So Lilith got a little bit of a damage boost on her second ability. I think it's enough to be a little bit significant, but I don't think it's enough to be like overpowering. But I think that's nice because Lilith was in a little weird niche this past beta where there's a lot of people that were like hardcore going Lilith, going DPS and doing well with her. And then there were some people who were struggling to figure out a good place to build her up. And then there were some people that just didn't bother building her at all. So I think giving her this little damage boost will make her more usable across the board. And I think that's really, really nice. But we'll have to see how that goes. So, all right. So on Kloss, for her skill 1, her hacking progress, let's see. They have removed. Okay, so yeah, okay, so this is a little bit of a nerf because they removed the lowering of the speed. So basically, each stack increases damage taken by 5%, reduces damage dealt by an additional 10%, and it used to be, and lowers speed by 4% up to maximum of stacks. So they've removed that, and they removed it from hack-in to, they removed the lowering speed by 20%, which kind of like, I don't really... Like, I personally don't necessarily agree with that, but, like, it is what it is for balance sake. Kind of sad. But, however, they kind of make up for it in her S3 by applying a defense down and a speed down for 2 turns. So, they took out the lowering of speed percentage on her first skill, but then they made up for it by putting it into her ultimate. So, we'll see if that balances it enough for it to not really make an impact of how her playstyle was, and maybe it'll make it more impactful for the future for when you're using her ult. Well, we shall see. Okay. So Freya, okay, so for her first skill, each time an enemy is inflicted with a debuff, there's a 70% chance to push back its turn meter by 4%, triggering up to 3 times. I don't see another value, and I don't remember her skills off the top of my head, so I'm assuming this is an addition to be able to turn back their turn meter by 4%, which is kind of like, I like that, because it makes her first ability passive a little bit more impactful. So I like that. I think that's good. I think that's really good. Okay, so Crimson Waltz, Turandot. I'm butchering. Second ability deals 4 instances of 70% damage to a single enemy. The attack having a 30% chance to push back the target's turn meter, and that went from by 30% to 25%. So that's a little bit of a nerf. So doesn't push back the turn meter as much. But I think this change is okay. I don't think it's going to be too rough. I think this will be okay. I didn't really see Turandot used too much because you have characters like Marvel, which I see him down there on the list. I'm a little low-key worried what they changed about him because he was really strong in the beta. So we'll see. Okay, Illusions Reality Chiaki. This is the healer Chiaki. So SR healer Chiaki, she has green on. That's how you can kind of tell the difference. The one wearing green is your healer. Okay, so for her first ability, they actually buffed her healing. So heals the allies with the lowest HP percentage, and it went up from 12% to 15% of their max HP. And then her second ability heals a single ally for 40%, and that goes up to 50% of their max HP. And then her third ability heals all allies for 24%, and that went up to 30%. So it did boost her healing across all 3 abilities, which hopefully will make her a decent pick along with Sonya as far as SR units go. But we'll have to see. I kind of wish they changed it from their max HP to her max HP, because I feel like then you would get the full value of heals, like more value, I should say, out of the healing. But I do like that they did buff her heals across the board. Okay, so Dina. Yeah, I kind of figured. We got a little bit of nerfs to Dina. Dina was also a strong pick in the beta. So Dina's skill 1, her 40% chance to steal turn meter. The turn meter goes from 25% down to 15%. And then her skill 2 for her erosion passive, Upon receiving the next crit damage, consumes a stack to add true damage equal to 60% of the attacker's attack, and increases the attacker's turn meter, and that went from 10% down to 6%. So, and that's the passive that's triggered by your allies. So, I mean, that is pretty significant on the nerfs for her here. So, we shall see. But she still does apply the erosion. She still does apply the stealing turn meter and her other effects. So I feel like she's still going to be okay. It's just a matter of how bad did these hit her as far as how big of a difference it's going to make in her playstyle. Kraken. Okay, so Kraken also receives some nerfs. So deals 240% AoE damage to all enemies. So it went from a 75% chance to a 65% chance to push back the target's turn meter. And they actually didn't put it in green, but and that went from 35% chance, or 35%, sorry, to 30%. And then his freeze went from 60% to 50%. So that's pretty significant as far as that goes, because your chance to apply the target pushback, is lower. The amount you push them back is lower, and the chance to freeze them is also lower. So we'll just kind of have to see how, like, in general, that's going to end up going out. And then, like, the next one is going to be Sonya. So her skill 2 passive actually got nerfed. Oh, that's unfortunate. But it's only got nerfed to 2%, so it's not really all that bad. It could be worse. And then her healing effect increase also got nerfed by 0.2%. I think overall, this, you could probably feel the difference, especially when you're against those late game PvE bosses, but I think it's not too bad. But yeah. Oh yeah, this was an issue where she could trigger her passive healing. Yeah. That's actually kind of funny. I was wondering about that, so good that that's cleared. Okay, so Marvel did get some nerfs. I kind of figured that he would. So his skill 1, dealing 240% damage to a single enemy with a 50, went down to 40% chance to steal turn meter, and that went from 25 to 15%. So that's pretty significant. And then his skill 3, so he still applies speed down, he still does res down, he still has a 60% chance to turn back the target's turn meter, but that goes from 50% to 40%. And then his skill cooldown got increased from 4 to 5. So that's pretty significant. I don't know if it's going to make him harder to play or not as sufficient to play. I say it's pretty significant, but we'll kind of have to see how significant those changes actually are. Hopefully, it's not too bad, because I did like playing Marvel. Victor, I saw this nerf coming from a mile away. Okay, so for every 10% of his HP lost, increases his damage dealt by, and it went from 15% to 9% because he was hitting like a truck. So, and then now his skill 3 cannot stack multiple shields. So that should take Victor down a little bit because he was kind of a menace. So I agree with those changes. So Link's Dorothy, her casket for her skill 2, there was an issue where the skill was not being cast during auto battle. So that's nice that that's fixed. Number 41 got a nerf. She was actually being used a little bit. Some niche people were using it. And I say niche people because it's like not everyone, but there were some people that were specializing using her in their team. So her skill 3, pushing for the allies' turn meter, it got nerfed from 35% to 20%. So it's not as significant as a 15% change. So that could definitely make the difference of whether you're going to use her or use someone else. Okay. And then we're getting into shells. So White Fang's damage for his 2 instances of damage got nerfed by 30%. Again, that's pretty significant, but I do feel like that was a little warranted. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Artisan's shield got nerfed from 440 to 400%, and I feel like that's mainly due to like PvP issues, but we shall see. Skills cannot have their cooldown reduced from Codex Magic. Amber, skills cannot have their cooldown reduced. Halloween fixed an issue with incorrect actual trigger probability. And then Twilight Night, this is the gold shell. So the damage dealt went down by 40%. Diamond Heart, which gives the increased defense and applies a shield. The shield went down by 60%. So, and then cannot stack with similar effects applied by the shield. So I think like those are some fair changes as far as balancing goes, but we'll have to see how that's going to apply in practice. Okay, so then we have some optimizations. Pick some, basically these are not, I don't want to go over every single one individually, but did fix some little visual optimizations and some issues with things here and there, which is really, 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 really nice. And then we got shop adjustments, things like that. And then just some miscellaneous adjustments. So I feel like overall the balancing was pretty fair. I feel like maybe some of them might in the future get changed a little bit. We'll have to see how badly the nerfs affected the overall gameplay of some of these characters. But in general, I think we should be fine. But yeah, so I'm really excited about the update coming. I hope we get a few more quality of life changes in the future. And I'm really excited for Mio. I feel like with the changes to Marvel and the changes to Kraken, she's going to be even more important to hopefully try to obtain, because she basically does what Marvel and Kraken does in her own little unique way. I, for one, really want her, so I think she'll be really, really, really good. Still, though, I don't believe she applies resistance down, so I think Marvel is still the only one that does it, but we'll just have to see how those nerfs are going to affect him. So, pretty much. But, let me know what you guys thought. If you have your own thoughts about it, if you think the changes were good, if you think the changes were bad, if you feel like more should have been done or less should have been done, let me know. But yeah, I'm so excited to be able to play this with you guys. We have less than 4 days now for Etheria Restart launch on global, so I can't wait to play it with all you guys. And if you like the video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye everyone!